Laura, it looks like the same offense. It looks like exactly what they did with Ben Johnson. Now John Morton, he was there 2 years ago or I guess 2022. He was with the Lions under Dan Campbell as well as Ben Johnson when he was the offensive coordinator. So he's been in those meetings. He understands what they've been doing, why they've been successful, and he's just kind of picked up where Ben Johnson left off. And last week in that win against Chicago was awfully impressive. Of course, what Jared Goff did, and I know he's got a little more ownership right now in this offense, so that's a big factor as a veteran quarterback. But yeah, it looks good. It looks like they're still the team they've been.
All right, both NFC Offensive Player of the Week winners this season have had their way with the Bears defense. Could Dak be next as we turn our attention to what we'll see week 3? You had J.J. McCarthy with a pair of passing and rushing touchdowns in his NFL debut. Great comeback in that game by him. You also had the Lions drop 50 points, thanks in part to 5 touchdowns from Jared Goff in a week 2 blowout. So, Peter, does all this point to a huge game for Dak and the Cowboys?
Yes. Monster offensive numbers. I could see Dak throwing the ball all over the yard. And I think this is a really interesting game. It's the Fox premiere game of the weekend, and we're all going to be watching on the couch because we're going to see offense. They got sliced up by Russell Wilson. So to me, this is going to be an interesting one of whether Caleb can go show for show, throw for throw with Dak Prescott, because I have no doubt Dak's going to have another big day.
Dak leads the NFL in passes from the pocket this season already with 86. So the Cowboys are who they are on offense right now. They're going to throw it up and down
all over the yard.
On you, okay? Just do exactly what Jared Goff and the Lions did last week. What was the formula? 1, on first down, they ran 30 first downs for 322 yards, okay? And they went play action.
Good.
I'll say that again. 30 first downs for 322 yards. On play action on first down last week, Jared Goff was 13 of 14 for 196 yards and a perfect passer rating of 158.3. Just do that. You will have an outstanding game. And so I fully expect that that's how Dak and this offense will operate. First down.
So we're focused on football, and they're playing well. And we look at the Detroit Lions. Talk about a bounce-back game, just setting the stage. You can't take anything away. You play a divisional opponent, and you're the Detroit Lions. They go through 2 new coordinators. They bounce back this week and show who they kind of are. And that's also a reflection of their head coach, Dan Campbell. I mean, he losing is not going to be accepted, and it's not even an option in that building. And when you lose, you better take it personal because he takes it personal. So they reflect him to a degree. But I still think the Green Bay has got a very solid football team. Matt LaFleur is a good coach, Dan Campbell. And when you look at this division, Kevin O'Connell, what he does in Minnesota, those 3 are maybe 3 of the top coaches in the National Football League. And I know Minnesota, you sit there and look at them, and they came on late to beat the Chicago Bears. Then you say, then Detroit beat the Chicago Bears pretty handily. So where does that put Minnesota? But it's a week-to-week affair. I still think Detroit is still be a team. They lost at Green Bay. Okay, week 1 in Green Bay. They'll look forward to that rematch in Detroit. But I think the Green Bay Packers, are for real. I think when you look at what they did and getting Micah and with Jordan Love and the plethora of receivers that they have right now, them and Detroit to me are 2 of the top teams in the NFC.
I think about Detroit and what they did today and their bounce back. They had won 10 straight games after a loss coming into today. Now it's 11. The last time they lost back-to-back was October of 2022.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good football teams in this league are going to have losses.
Yep.
Great football teams don't have back-to-back losses. I think this is a football team and an organization that is built the right way and is about the right stuff. And Dan Campbell even had comments prior to the game saying, listen, I am good friends with the head coach of the Chicago Bears. But we're going to get the job done today.
Right.
We're going to get the job done. Ben Johnson, he's a great friend of mine, but we're going to take care of business. And I think he provides that bravado for the team, and they take it and they run with it, and they played inspired football today.
Detroit. So, of course, they wanted to make a statement.
Yeah.
This wasn't some friendly win.
No.
They were running up the score like they were trying to get ranked in college football.
Yeah.
And I respect it. I appreciate it for a couple of reasons. They say you're not supposed to run up the score in the NFL. I think Detroit needed this confidence booster.
Yeah.
They heard what everybody's saying. Oh, on top of that, the offensive coordinator, defensive
Yes.
coordinator, were also hearing whispers.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Aaron Glenn being with the Jets, it's really going to hurt this defense. Ben Johnson, the way he was calling the plays, and I'm quoting myself, the way he was calling the plays last year with the Lions, I just don't think they have the same rhythm. I saw them against the Packers. They don't seem like the same team. They seemed better today. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
First time in his career. Everybody touched the ball. Big plays all over the field. I just feel like Detroit had to put their foot down at home and send a message, not just to Ben Johnson, but to the rest of the league, saying, listen, we might have stumbled out the gates, but we're as for real as last year. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to do coming up in week 3 and 4.
Coach talks about it all the time. You're finding out who your football team is through the first 4 weeks of the season. And oftentimes we think about, you're finding out who your players are, what you have. Dan Campbell's finding out who his coordinators are, and specifically who Johnny Morton is, and how that's going to fit in with what Jared Goff does and what Amon-Ra St. Brown does and what the run game is going to look like. I guarantee you Dan had conversations with both coordinators about, hey, this is my expectation for you as we move forward. Right. I saw one game of how we were communicating, how we game planned, how we did different things. This is where I think we can be better moving forward. You look at the stat line today, this is vintage Jared Goff numbers, right? High completion percentage, 23 of 28.
Why are we not talking about Jared Goff as much as we should be? These numbers are wild. 23 of 28, 344, 5 TDs.
The one I love the most is the 11.9 yards per attempt. That means every time you're dropping back to throw the football, you're getting a first down.
And so they came in. So they played a very solid game, okay? And they know who they are. And I think, they are going to be the litmus test. I mean, you've been the team to beat when you talk about being in the NFC, just like the Philadelphia Eagles have to face it every week. The Detroit Lions have to face it every week too, and particularly in your own division. Now, we're going to find out a little bit about the Detroit Lions because now they're going against the AFC North in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
They're going to, so we always said, who's better, AFC North or NFC North? The Detroit Lions are getting a bunch of AFC.
The Detroit Lions, fresh off a gut-wrenching week, one gut punch in Green Bay, storm Ford Field like avenging demons. They don't just beat the Chicago Bears, they annihilate them, 52-21, in a 31-point massacre that echoes through the NFC like a thunderclap. Jared Goff? Surgical. 23 of 28 for 344 yards, 5 touchdowns, an insane 11.9 yards per attempt, every drop back a dagger, every throw a first down. Amon-Ra St. Brown? A monster unleashed. 9 catches, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns, plus 7 rushing yards because why not? The Lions dropped 52 points, their highest since. Well, forever feels right. This isn't a win. It's a declaration of war on doubt, on the whispers that new coordinators Ben Johnson, now with Chicago, and Aaron Glenn, off to the Jets, had crippled them. Dan Campbell's fire? It burns brighter. Losing isn't an option in that building. It's personal, visceral, a scar that fuels 11 straight wins after a loss. The last back-to-back defeat, October 2022. Ancient history. Detroit's not rebuilding, they're reloading for dominance. But in this league of heartbreak, one question haunts. Can they sustain the fury against beasts like Baltimore? Yet, as the dust settles in Detroit, the NFC North's wolves circle closer, reminding us that survival demands more than one savage roar. The NFC North? It's a gladiatorial pit, where coaches like Dan Campbell, Matt LaFleur, and Kevin O'Connell clash like titans, 3 of the league's elite, turning divisional games into blood feuds. Green Bay, those smug Packers, stole Week 1-inch Lambeau. Something score that left Lions fans seething. But Detroit's revenge simmers. That rematch in Ford Field? Electric. Minnesota clawed a late win over Chicago. But let's be real, Detroit humiliated the Bears 52-21, while the Vikes scraped by. Standings after Week 2. Packers 2-0, Lions and Vikings 1-1, Bears 0-2 and reeling. Controversy brews. Is Minnesota overrated, hiding behind late-game miracles? Or is Detroit the true predator, built brick by brick under Campbell's unyielding glare? He demands perfection conversations with new OC John Morton, veteran of 2022's Lions schemes. Echo, this is my expectation, evolve or evaporate. The Lions' run game, 30 first downs, 322 yards on play action alone last week, vintage, vicious. But here's the gut twist. Great teams don't lose twice in a row. Detroit hasn't since 22. They're 1-1 for 1-1 post-loss. Yet, the North's gauntlet awaits 3 divisional tests in weeks 3-5. Fail, and it's collapse. Irreverence from rivals mocking your almost empire. Succeed? You're the division's dreadnought. But amid this northern carnage, one Lion's shadow looms largest, the X-Factor who could shatter Baltimore's armor and etch Detroit's legend in stone. Enter Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not just a receiver, but Detroit's heartbeat. a playmaker whose absence would leave the offense gasping, degraded, a hollow shell of its roaring self. Week 2, he torched Chicago's secondary like dry tinder. 9 receptions, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns, earning FedEx Air and Ground Player of the Week in a bounce-back blaze after Week 1's quiet 45 yards on 4 catches. Through 2 games, 13 grabs, 160 yards, 3 scores, precise routes, vice grip hands, yak magic that turns chains into chainsaws. Jared Goff's crutch? Undeniably. But controversy crackles. Is Street Brown overhyped, a product of scheme, or the untouchable catalyst? Critics whisper his 2024 dip. Fans roar his unyielding grit. In this, Lions machine balanced with Montgomery's thunder, envision his Week 2 bulldozes, and Gibbs' lightning street. Brown's ripple? Defenses swarm him, freeing Jamison Williams for bombs, Gibbs for check-down daggers. He lines up everywhere. Slot assassin, boundary bully, jet sweep thief. Stop him? Nightmare fuel. Without his fire, Detroit devolves, drives stall, crowds jeer, contenders crumble into perennial bridesmaids. With it, explosive Armageddon, points in avalanches. Praise him. He's the NFL's stealth supernova, demanding double teams that expose cracks. Feel the thrill. Could he single-handedly dethrone dynasties? This symphony crescendos Monday night in Baltimore's Cauldron, where Street Brown's blade meets the Ravens' battered shield, testing if Detroit's roar drowns the purple storm. Monday Night Football at M&T Bank. Lions versus Ravens, a playoff fever dream in Week 3, both silencing skeptics. Detroit's 52-21 evisceration of Chicago, Baltimore's 41-17 steamroll of Cleveland. Firepower collides. Lamar Jackson's MVP sorcery. Derrick Henry's earth, shaking runs versus Goff's precision and Street Brown's venom. But shock. Ravens secondary? A sieve, 31st in passing yards allowed, 298 per game, vulnerable to timing route maestros like Street Brown. Their run D cracked open for Montgomery and Gibbs to feast. Baltimore's pride? Legendary, but 2025's inconsistencies scream peril press coverage that crumbles. Zones that leak like sieves. Controversial take. If Harbaugh loads the box to stop the run, Street Brown feasts unchecked, turning M&T into a Lions Coliseum. Ravens counter? Physical jams. Disguised blitzes, but Street Brown's polish endures, sustaining drives, silencing 70,000 howling souls. Stakes? Sky high. Detroit's covered spreads better than anyone last 3 years. Lose here, and the almost label festers like an open wound. Win? Message sent. Lions aren't knocking, they're busting the elite door down. Excitement surges. Dak Prescott eyes. Similar slaughter versus Bears next. But Detroit's the litmus offense. Versus offense. Will. Versus will. You feel it. Heart-pounding. Edge-of-seat chaos where heroes rise or heroes shatter. As the clock ticks to kickoff, one truth burns. Detroit's destiny hangs on this blade's edge. Tune in, or miss the roar that redefines the NFL.